I woke up on my second Tuesday of retirement, looked around my quiet house, and felt something I hadn't expected: a deep, unsettling emptiness. The morning coffee tasted the same. The newspaper was still there on the front step, but everything felt different. For 43 years, I'd rushed through mornings, grabbed my thermos, and headed out the door with purpose. Now I sat at my kitchen table watching the clock tick past 8:30, wondering what I was supposed to do with all these hours stretching ahead of me like an endless highway. Maybe you felt this too. That strange mix of relief and restlessness that comes when the alarm clock finally stops being your boss. I dreamed of retirement for so long, sleeping and reading those books I'd stacked on my nightstand, maybe learning to make bread from scratch like my mother used to do. But when it finally arrived, I found myself wandering from room to room, straightening things that were already straight, checking the mailbox twice before noon. The first few weeks were the hardest. My wife, bless her heart, was still working her part-time job at the library, and the house felt too big and too quiet when she left each morning. I'd turn on the television for company, but the daytime shows felt foreign to me. I missed the rhythm of having somewhere to be, people counting on me problems to solve. I even missed my old office coffee, terrible as it was. It was during one of those restless afternoons while I was reorganizing my tool shed for the third time that I stumbled across an old journal my grandmother had given me years ago. I'd never written in it, always thought journaling was something other people did. But that day, sitting on an old wooden crate between my lawnmower and Christmas decorations, I opened it up and started writing about how lost I felt. Something magical happened when I put pen to paper. The words came slowly at first, then faster like water finding its way through a dam. I wrote about missing my daily routine, about feeling invisible in a world that suddenly didn't need me the way it used to. I wrote about the dreams I'd had for retirement and how different reality felt. And somewhere in those pages, I began to see a different path forward. That evening, I made myself a simple dinner: scrambled eggs with cheese, toast with butter, a cup of herbal tea. Instead of eating in front of the television news, I sat at my kitchen table with my journal and wrote about the taste of the eggs, the way the evening light came through my window, the sound of my neighbor's wind chimes in the breeze. It was such a small thing, but it felt like the first peaceful moment I'd had in weeks. Over the next few days, I began to see my home with fresh eyes. Instead of a place I was stuck in, I started thinking of it as my own personal retreat center. I cleared off the small table by my living room window, the one that had been collecting mail and reading glasses for months, and made it my morning reflection spot. I put my journal there along with a simple coffee mug and a small plant my daughter had given me last spring. Each morning I'd sit there with my coffee and watch the world wake up outside my window. I'd see Mrs. Patterson from next door walking her little terrier, the school bus, picking up the Henderson kids, the joggers making their morning rounds. Instead of feeling left out of the busy world, I began to appreciate being witness to it all. I was the quiet observer, the one who had time to notice the way the maple tree in my front yard was slowly changing colors, or how the morning light shifted across my living room floor as the seasons changed. I started thinking about what made places feel peaceful and healing. I remembered visits to my sister's cabin in the mountains, how the simple wooden furniture and soft blankets made everything feel calm. I thought about the little bed and breakfast where my wife and I had stayed for our anniversary years ago, with its comfortable reading nook and the way they served tea in real china cups, not paper ones. Slowly, I began creating my own version of these peaceful spaces right in my own home. I didn't need to spend a lot of money or make big changes. It was about the small touches, the gentle rituals that made each day feel intentional instead of empty. I started making my bed each morning with the same care I used to reserve for when company was coming over. I'd smooth the quilt my mother-in-law had made us, fluff the pillows just so, and take a moment to appreciate having a comfortable place to rest each night. Such a simple thing, but it made me feel like I was taking care of self instead of just getting by. My morning coffee became a ceremony instead of a habit. I'd grind the beans fresh, listening to that familiar sound that meant a new day was beginning. I'd warm my favorite mug, the blue one my grandson made in his high school pottery class, and pour the coffee slowly, watching the steam rise up. Instead of gulping it down while rushing around, I'd sit with it, taste it, let it warm my hands and my heart. These small changes began to add up to something bigger than I'd expected. What started as a way to fill empty hours was becoming something deeper. A chance to rediscover who I was when I wasn't defined by my job title or my daily obligations. I was learning that retirement didn't have to feel like an ending. It could be a beginning, a chance to create the peaceful, meaningful life I'd always wanted but never had time for. As weeks turned into months, I discovered that creating a retreat like retirement wasn't about having the perfect setup or following someone else's rules. It was about paying attention to what brought me peace and then making space for more of those things in my daily life. I started noticing that I felt most centered when I was working with my hands. So I cleared out a corner of my garage and set up a simple woodworking area. Nothing fancy, just a workbench my father had built years ago, and the basic tools I'd collected over the decades. I began making small things, a bird feeder for the backyard, a spice rack for my wife, little wooden boxes to hold my grandson's treasures when he visited. The smell of wood shavings, the feel of sandpaper smoothing rough edges, the satisfaction of creating something useful with my own two hands, it all felt like meditation to me. My wife noticed the change in me before I did. "You seem more like yourself lately," she said one evening as we sat on our back porch watching the cardinals visit the feeder I'd made. She was right. For the first time since retiring, I wasn't trying to fill time, I was savoring it. I also rediscovered the simple pleasure of cooking real meals, not just heating things up. I'd always left most of the cooking to my wife during our working years, but now I had time to really learn. I started with basic things, a pot roast that could simmer all afternoon, homemade soup, with vegetables from the farmer's market, fresh bread that filled the house with warmth and comfort. There's something deeply satisfying about feeding yourself and the people you love with your own hands, taking the time to do it right. One of the biggest surprises was discovering that my retreat-like retirement didn't mean becoming isolated. Instead, it helped me connect with people in more meaningful ways. When I slowed down enough to really see my neighbors, I started noticing who might need a helping hand. Mrs. Patterson, who'd been walking her little dog past my house for years, was struggling with some heavy grocery bags one afternoon. I offered to help, and we ended up talking for 20 minutes about her garden and my woodworking. That conversation led to others. Soon I was helping her with small repairs around her house, and she was sharing vegetables from her garden with us. It wasn't a big dramatic friendship, just two neighbors looking out for each other the way people used to do more often. I joined the volunteer program at our local food bank, not because I felt obligated, but because sorting and packing food donations gave me that same peaceful, purposeful feeling I got from my woodworking. 3 hours every Wednesday morning, working alongside other retirees, using my hands to help families in our community. It felt good to be needed again, but in a gentle way that didn't overwhelm me. The library became another sanctuary. I'd always been a reader, but now I had time to really lose myself in books. I discovered the comfortable chairs in the corner by the large windows where the afternoon light was perfect for reading. Sometimes I'd run into other regular visitors and we'd chat quietly about what we were reading. Nothing forced or scheduled, just the natural conversations that happen when people share a peaceful space. Living at retreat pace taught me to pay attention to the natural rhythms that I'd been too busy to notice during my working years. I started organizing my days around the seasons instead of the clock. In spring, I'd spend mornings in the garden planting seeds and watching for the first green shoots. Summer meant early morning walks before the heat set in and evenings on the porch with a glass of iced tea listening to the cicadas. Fall became my favorite season for woodworking. Something about the crisp air and shorter days made me want to create cozy things for winter. I made a simple wooden tray for serving hot chocolate, picture frames for family photos, a small shelf for my wife's collection of teacups. Winter was for reading by the fire, writing in my journal, and planning what I'd plant in the garden come spring. This natural rhythm felt so much healthier than the artificial urgency I'd lived with for decades. My body knew when to rest and when to be active. My mind had space to wander and wonder. I wasn't constantly checking the time or feeling guilty about not being productive enough. I learned to embrace what I started calling empty time, those moments when I wasn't doing anything in particular, just sitting and being present. Watching clouds move across the sky from my porch swing, listening to rain on the roof while I had my morning coffee, feeling the sun on my face during afternoon walks. These weren't wasted moments, they were some of the most valuable parts of my day. If you're struggling with retirement, like I am, I want you to know that it doesn't have to feel like an ending or an emptiness. You have to fill with busy activities. You can create your own version of peaceful retreat living right where you are with what you have. Start small. Choose one corner of your home and make it completely yours, a place where you can sit quietly and just be. It might be a kitchen table by a window, a comfortable chair in your bedroom, or even a spot on your back porch. Put something beautiful there, something that makes you smile. Maybe a plant, a photo you love, or just a pretty mug for your coffee. Pay attention to what makes you feel peaceful and do more of those things. Maybe it's working in the garden. Maybe it's cooking from scratch. Maybe it's learning something new with your hands. Don't worry about being productive or impressive. Just follow what feels good to your soul. Create gentler routines that honor your new freedom instead of trying to replace your old structure. Make your coffee mindfully. Take walks without destinations. Write down your thoughts, even if nobody else will read them. These small acts of self-care add up to a life that feels intentional and meaningful. I'd love to hear about your own retirement journey in the comments below. What helps you feel peaceful and purposeful in this new chapter of life? Have you discovered any simple rituals or spaces that bring you joy? Your experiences might be exactly what another person needs to hear today. If this resonated with you, please consider subscribing to Senior Living Easy. We're building a community of people who believe that growing older can be about growing wiser, more peaceful, and more connected to what truly matters. And remember, your retirement doesn't have to look like anyone else's idea of what it should be. It can be as quiet and gentle and meaningful as you want to make it. You've earned this time of peace. You deserve to savor every moment of it.